So to you, Deacon, like you work specifically in a college, and so you sort of have the opportunity to minister. I know we've had that conversation before. You sometimes minister to college students. In college, has it been your experience that for modesty and chastity, are things better than in high school? The things you've heard maybe Carrie talk about. Is it better there? Is it worse in some areas? Are guys worse in college? Are girls worse? Like what about like in the future for our 15-year-olds? What is the outlook?
Like?
Yeah.
I think there's some ways I think it's kind of both.
Okay.
There's some things I think that are better and some things that are a little bit worse. I think one of the things that we find in college is, right now where statistics say, it's something like 1 in 6 women will have been sexually harassed or assaulted by the time they graduate college. And colleges are so aware of that there's so much education going into place, early in college careers of sexual responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the sense of responsibility on both sides of gaining consent and making sure that there's consent. So I think, in a sense, I think it's a little bit better in that there's more conversations going on about it, that there's more openness about it, and there's this sense of education of, we need to be more respectful of each other. We need to have that respect. So I think there's a little bit more openness in a college setting of being able to talk about those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in a sense, maybe that part of it is maybe a little bit better. Yeah. On the other side of it, I think part of that education is because there's also almost this expectation that if you're in a relationship with somebody, you're having sex with them.
Yeah.
And I think that almost becomes peer pressure then to do that.
To enter into that physical relationship.
To enter into the physical relationship and this sense of, and again, then you put that back into what do relationships look like, and they're all these quick, intense relationships, which, then become quickly physical and then, become non-existent. I do think that part's still true in the college setting, that there are, because where do people meet? Where do people find each other? It's on Instagram, it's on Snapchat, it's on Tinder, it's on all these all these apps on your phone. You're swiping right, swiping left. So what are you basing your decisions on? It's all on physical appearances and things
Short
like that.
term.
As opposed to, I'm in a friend relationship and now I'm dating that person.
Yeah.
I think it gets better the longer they're in school, because then there's more maturity and more of a sense of longer term looking at things. Oh, I'm graduating college, now I'm going into a career, now I need to establish my life. So I think as they get older in college, maybe that gets better, but I think those first couple of years, it's kind of, I have to have the college experience. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
The college experience means you go to class and you learn, but for some, it's the social experience. I need to go out drinking. I need to have I need to go to a frat party. I need to go to a sorority party. And, so I think that in that sense, it's, I don't want to call it peer pressure, but I think it's almost like this rite of passage that people feel like they have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is kind of a stigma there. But I do think because of, the last part that I think is kind of good news is that with that education piece, I think that empowers people who want to live a modest and chaste life to be able to do that as well, and to find other peer groups that are into that,
mm-hmm.
And who are following that same pattern. So, because of this education piece, because of this sexual responsibility that was taught to people and said, you need to have this, then people who choose that have more ability, I think, in college to maybe say no and to say this is how, to make that mature decision and be like, no means no, there's not like that. I don't think people get pressured into sex from a male-female standpoint. I don't think that happens. I think, there is more of this consensual thought process. The problems with sexual harassment, the problems with sexual assault in colleges revolve around alcohol use. They're not sober decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know if that kind of helps. But
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, it's sort of like, it's almost like people need alcohol or something because we've lost the script. Like, nobody knows really how to date anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially with COVID.
yeah.
Especially
Yes.
with COVID.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so hard. We've been telling people to socially distance for, so long. And, now it's funny because we do we do pre-marriage counseling for the Catholic Church, and we just had a couple last night, and they met on a dating app. And like their first date, they went like walking down a trail, and she was like, "This is weird. We're walking down a trail by ourselves, and like, what are we gonna do?" Like she was like, "It might be a little scary, and it wasn't. It turned out fine." But she didn't even think
Gonna
about
murder
that
me in
before
the
they set the
trail.
date, right? She didn't even think about that before they set the date.
Well, but it was also
yeah.
it was during COVID, so it was when there was no restaurants open,
Right.
and it's like, so where do you do your first date?
You go
It's
for
like-
a walk on a trail
It's
by
like, do
yourselves.
you want to come to my house for dinner? Well,
And
no,
she's
that's
like,
even more
no.
awkward.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. So, it's like, I think in a sense. And so from the high school perspective, like what we're noticing with like this year's freshmen in high school is they have lost out on almost 2 years of socialization. Like
It's crazy.
They are, this year's group of freshmen, they say whatever comes into their head because they have been at home and doing school on Zoom and able to say whatever pops into their head anytime they want to. And so here they come into a school, and we find ourselves continually saying, "You can't say that. Stop talking. You can't do that. This is not socially appropriate." Like, and in ways that we have never had to do before. This is my 4th year teaching freshmen at Lopez. I've never said the things I've said to these freshmen before. Never, ever, ever. Like, and so rediscovering what that social appropriateness is, I think that goes with romantic relationships as well. Like they don't know how to be appropriate around each other. They just don't know,
So interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
So not
it's
only
very
now
weird.
is it sort of like we had all this app and this technology before to try and like meet somebody, which it was already bad prior to COVID.
Sure.
And with alcohol and everything else, sort of the like social, a tool to like become more social because you were always nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, I don't even know how to like talk in a normal
Right.
setting. It's
Right.
not, so it trickles into just like being,
Just being
Just being in a classroom.
Just being
Yeah.
in a classroom. Yeah.
so
Like,
never
I mean,
mind a relationship because that's way
Exactly.
more intense, way more
Exactly.
personable.
Yeah, they don't know how to have one-on-one conversations with each other. They don't know how to have one-on-one conversations with each other. They sit in class, and when they have group projects, they'll instant message each other instead of like actually discussing the project. I'm like, you're sitting right next to each other, and they,
So weird.
and yeah, it's quite weird. So.
Yeah, I was at a restaurant last night and I
Uh-huh.
saw, and I mean, you always see these things like now, which is
Yeah.
sad, but like I saw a husband and wife on Facebook separately.
Yeah.
Like just sitting in the booth.
Yeah.
And they're just doing this.
Yeah.
And I walked by and I almost was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you even here?
Exactly. Like
just
have
to
a
like,
conversation. You could sit at home and do this.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
order Chinese and bring it home and you could sit on the couch.
Exactly.
Why did you go out?
Exactly.
So it's just so
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the example though that we have, whether it's
Right.
with the divorce and dating and relationships, or it's that with parents sometimes being on their phones all the time.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
trickling down into
Yep.
into the youth.
Yep, it's hard. It's really hard. These poor kids. It's kind of scary.
I think it's going to be like multi-year like recovery
I
for a
don't
lot
doubt
of
that.
us.
I don't doubt that. Yeah, it's going to be a little crazy. So.
I think for our kids, it's more because they haven't been able to go out for so long, that now it's like, it's kind of like, when you have super strict parents and then you go off to college and you're like, and you go wild. I feel like in a sense, like that's what this year's been like, because they've been cooped up for a year and a half and not been able to go out, that now they're like, hey, now we can go do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
If you enjoyed this video of our parents series called Reach, I would invite you to check out our other videos on our website, princeofpeaceormond.com, linked in the description below, and check out our YouTube page and Facebook page for other materials, other events going on for parents and families alike. Finally, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would love it if you like this video, subscribe to it, and share it with your friends and family who would like to know more about these different topics. And we look forward to seeing you again.